Hi, I'm Roy Collin, and I'm the creator of the podcast. You can find everything about me and the 5 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster, and you'll find it in the QR code there. I'd also like to thank my sponsors. If you or someone you know is struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard Anxiety Solution Program Company offers a 6 weeks system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you have high blood pressure and want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. Get a $50 discount with my code ROY. Go to zona.com/discount/ROY and you see the QR code for all my sponsors down at the end. Quality Polish manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metals. If you'd like a brochure, you see it in the QR code and you just let us know if you would like a quotation shipped internationally and very competitive rates. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast.
Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org and you'll find a QR code and all the different podcasts that I've got. So my guest today, a fellow Irish woman from beautiful Wicklow, professional animal healer, a teacher and a speaker. Please welcome Lisa Tully.
Hi, Roy. Thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this. So, I've just kind of given the bullet points, but you might let the listeners know a little bit about Lisa.
So I work as a holistic practitioner for animals, which is a little bit unusual, but it's very much needed because the animals are limited in what they have access to in terms of vets and things like that. So what I do to break it down and help you understand it a bit better is I can help animals when they have emotional challenges or when they may have physical conditions. I can help them with that as well. And sometimes if they're very serious physical conditions, I'll collaborate with homeopathic vets. And to give you a bit about my background, born in Ireland, as you say, I did a science degree here in Dublin in DCU because I was thinking about studying veterinary medicine, but the points are super high. So I ended up working in pharmaceuticals for a while with my science, working in London in the major hospitals there. And then I started to meditate, and the meditation then led me down a path of a much more holistic lifestyle. And that brought me eventually to training in different skills, working with the animals. So the main skills I touch upon would be 5 elements, Chinese medicine principles with them. And then I also use herbs and essential oils and different botanicals like that, and a bit of animal communication as well. So I'm able to really tap into what it is the animal needs in order to live their best life. So that's a snapshot.
No, brilliant. And because I know you've been to India, you've been around kind of Europe as well. So you might kind of talk about what you've learned, because then people might understand better how you're actually able to apply this to the animals.
Sure. When I was living in London, there's lots of amazing teachers there. If you want to learn anything, it's there. So I came across some real inspirational teachers, and they got me really, really into meditation. And when I left my pharmaceutical career, a huge thing that caused that was the actual meditation, because I became a square peg in a round hole, and I was eventually managed out. So what I did was I went and I created a tour company that I would fill the tours and run the tours in India. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to fund my way to spend time in India and really deepen my meditation practice. So the tours that I ran there was I was taking people to McCloganj, which is north of Delhi by about 12 hours north. And the reason I was homing in on that area, it's where the Tibetan community live in exile. So it's home to the Dalai Lama and lots of monasteries. And I just really liked the way the Tibetans approached meditation and philosophy. So I spent a significant amount of time. I was in and out of India for a good 3 years and attending teachings and meditations. So that really, really got my practice very strong. And then what happened was, when I discovered the concept of animal communication, and it's actually something that you can learn and study, I got a book on it and I tried it. Now, I'd been very connected to animal life. I had other experiences with animals on my travels, but this kind of was a moment where it all came together. And then I started to study that, and I studied with teachers outside of Ireland, because there's not so many that teach it here. And one of them was living in the UK, Madeline Walker. So and you know, Roy, there's a big part of my travel that fits into this whole picture. And that is, I also spent a year living in the rainforests in Bolivia. And this happened earlier in my life, just after I graduated from my science degree. And basically, I was living in the jungle, and I was in a local village, and then I would walk up into the rainforest each day for about half an hour up into the jungle, where Millie, this ocelot cat, would be. And I was in charge of Millie. I was her keeper for a year, and she was in the wildlife sanctuary because her mum had been shot for her fur. So Millie and her brother were then stolen, and they were being sold in the market, which is horrendous. And her little brother didn't make it, but then Millie did. So she was hand fed. So she wasn't necessarily totally wild at all, but she wasn't tame either. She was a jungle cat. You can't keep them as a pet. They'll suddenly turn around and eat your dog. Like, seriously, that's what a lot of people try keep these animals as pets, and then they wonder why they eat their dog. So with Millie, it was a unique experience where I got to walk with her in the jungle, and I would just let go of her lead, and she would just go off and climb trees and catch snakes and all sorts. She even caught monkeys on me some of the time. And she was so fast. She would actually catch moving bats out of the air. Like, it was just phenomenal. And submersing myself in that immense nature, that immense ecosystem, like, you know, I would be walking through rivers, and I'd climb up out of a river, and looking dead on would be a snake hissing in my face. Like, you do totally the wrong thing, you jump back and scream. You know, there's no ability to kind of stay calm and think what you're supposed to do, stay still. But I made it through. I made it through the year, and it changed me. It really, really changed me, and it helped me understand fundamentally, I suppose, how disconnected we are from nature here in the West. And something that's really stuck with me from that, which I always hold true to my heart, which might sound like a small thing, but it was really big to me, is when you live in the jungle and you hear the beautiful birds, and you look up above the canopy and you see like several beautiful parrots all flying by together in a swarm, and you look at that and you just go, wow. For me, parrots growing up were always something you had in your house, something that was kept on a perch. I grew up around canaries and budgies, and so to bring my younger self to that kind of a place and see where these animals actually naturally come from, it stirred something in my soul. And I believe now my work with the animals is beyond just healing them, it's being their advocate as well. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I suppose with the animals, there's two kind of things. Obviously, there's, you know, when they have an injury, and then there's something mental. Because, like, unfortunately, you know, whether it's a dog or a cat, any animal really, like, sometimes they're abused and they need healing. So, like, I suppose let's touch on both of them, to kind of the way that you'd go about that. When, you know, first of all, if it's a mental thing with an animal.
So I suppose it's about looking at where the animal came from, even though there's the side of where an animal has had a trauma because they've been abused, that you could also look at where they came from, but it's in a slightly different way. If an animal is out of balance on a mental level or an emotional level, believe it or not, Roy, a lot of the time it can be because of their breeding. So if you're working with a lot of pedigree dogs or pedigree horses, these animals are pedigree cats that are bred to be sold. They have a much smaller gene pool and they inherit a lot of stuff from mum and dad. And so there's a bit of inbreeding there as well, which will impact them. But also what can happen is, now I'm not saying every breeder is like this, and sometimes people do this despite having the best of intentions for the animals that they breed and always making sure they have good homes, is that if an animal doesn't have enough time with mum and mum's milk and get to the point that mum actually weans the animals off her milk naturally, and then the animal has a few days with just still being with mum and mum gently pushing them away and saying, no, you've had enough milk for now, you have to feed yourself. What that does is it really trains the young animal's digestive system how to digest food properly. And the gut is known as the second brain, because when the gut is out of balance, it can affect your thought processes, it can affect your behaviors, it can affect your emotions. So a lot of these pedigree animals, they either came maybe from, say, if it's in the case of a dog, came from a puppy farm. Okay. Sometimes you'll get horses that are bred and a more expensive horse suddenly becomes an orphan, and they take that horse's mum and let her be the wet nurse for the more expensive horse. And the foal that's left behind then is hand reared. So they have all this lack of access to mum's real milk. Okay. And that can really, really affect them. And also how it can affect them is they can have separation anxiety. They can be really on edge the whole time, quite nervous. And that can turn to also being fearful, having fearful aggression, where they may go for you or go for particular types of people. And that kind of be a bit of a trigger point for them. So that's kind of one side. So how I would treat that is basically rebalance the gut, look at the diet, replenish the microbiome, maybe give them some bovine colostrum, which is the original milk. You would use maybe essential oils to start to calm down the mind as well. It all in the essential oils would work on the physiological side of it as well, and get the meridian points back into balance in the energy flow that goes into the organs, talking a little bit of Chinese medicine there. So that would be one way of dealing with it. And then to go on to the other type of animal, the one that is a rescue animal. Again, you would find that they more than likely, if they're traumatized, would have a digestive imbalance going on, even if they'd had mum's milk as at a perfect amount growing up and they were naturally weaned off mum. If they've gone through big enough a trauma, which a lot of rescue animals have done, again, it can still cause a digestive imbalance. So you would do the exact same thing, but you would more than likely have to work with them longer as well to help them soothe and ease the trauma of the mind. And again, you could use things like flower essences, herbs, essential oils with them. And one thing I would say, a huge part of my job, Roy, working with these animals, both types, is trying to encourage their person to be patient enough to let me do the work. Because it's fundamental that we need to understand whether an animal has a mental imbalance, an emotional imbalance, a trauma, or anything. They can only heal at the rate that they can heal at. If we humans go to therapy and we've got someone on our shoulder saying, have you not healed your trauma yet? You've had 6 sessions, you should be finished it by now. It's not going to work. So it's the exact same for the animals. It's about giving them the opportunity to heal at the rate that they can heal at, whatever their story.
And like with, say, the foods as well, because You know, I mean, we've whiskers, paws, all these kind of things. I mean, they're like the McDonald's of food. And I think, I mean, you see the ingredients, sometimes it's like 5% dash. I never saw my dog or cat go into the fireplace and licking out the ash. You know, it was like, I mean, there's a lot of toxins in the food, which in turn, I think they're not living as long. I mean, my dog lived to 16 because we weren't giving him that. We were giving him the same food as us. But I see a lot of the times maybe a dog's like 10 years and I think the food has a big part of that.
Oh, you've touched on a huge topic there, Roy, and I'm so glad you did, because it's pet food was made as a human convenience. You know, it hasn't really been around that long. And it, you know, it proved very popular. And then, like everything, the corporates jumped on top of it. And now they're making an absolute fortune on selling these foods. But even if it's the local supermarket food, any of these dry foods or these really highly processed wet foods, I like to say to people, you know, if you look at dry food for dogs or cats or horses or anything, any animals, or it's known as kibble or nuts, as people call it, if you look at it, what food group does it remind you of? None of them, because it's not a natural food. It's not an actual food. And you're right, it is full of all kinds of stuff that causes huge problems. And since it became the norm, animals' health has really, really, really declined. And what's a very frightening thing at the moment that's going on now is that corporations around the world are buying up veterinary practices. And there's a local veterinary practice I heard of recently here in Dublin that just got bought over by Mars, right? And the food that Mars makes for pets is a very well-known one, okay? And it's used as a prescription food as well. So I just want people to think about that for a minute. Why would a food company, a corporation like Mars, buy a veterinary practice? What is their ultimate goal? And how is that going to impact your animal? Are they going to genuinely have all options laid out to them when it comes to food? And the way I approach food with the animals is it becomes a very potent form of medicine. And the animals know this. So if you have a dog that is refusing to eat their dry food, so what you have to do is you have to mix in a bit of wet food and only then they'll eat it. The dog is telling you that the dry food, they don't want it, that it's probably causing harm, more than likely, to their digestive function, to their gut, to their kidneys, to everything. And that's why it's actually shortening their lives. And how I know the magic of food is because when animals come to me in all sorts of states of sickness, I'll always address the diet. And everything I do, all the botanicals I use, all the diets that I use, they're basically self-selected by the animal. So I get a pendulum and I have the animal's photo and I say, which do you want? Okay. And they always respond so well to what they personally choose for themselves. So this morning I was working on a dog who had paralysis. Now, this dog is only 3 years old, right? And it's a pedigree dog. And suddenly the dog developed paralysis of the hind legs. And thankfully now the dog is starting to get back function of the legs. Not, you know, they're about 70% there. But when I looked into the case, you know, is clearly what's going on with that dog from my experience is there's a kidney yang deficiency, which means that basically the kidneys are really, really struggling. And that dog was on a home cooked diet for the first year. And then the last 2 years, the guardian put the dog on dry food, probably influenced by somebody else to make that choice. I'm not quite sure. But that is impacting the kidneys because it puts strain on the digestive system. It puts strain on the spleen, the stomach, and they need to nourish the kidneys. Now, there would have been a kidney imbalance going on there anyway, but straight away, what I'm doing with that dog is I'm changing the diet, and the dog selected a diet for himself. 2 diets, one, which is congee, which is basically chicken and white rice and ginger, which is going to feed the digestive, the spleen and the stomach, which will nourish the kidneys. Okay. And he selected warming foods to warm up the kidneys. Now, that in itself is going to have a huge impact on that dog's health. That simple change can transform the dog's well-being. So I want people to reverse that. And I want the listeners to think about, well, if I take my dog off a fresh diet or a high quality raw food diet or a high quality wet food diet, and I switch it to kibble, to dry food, that's going to have a huge impact on their well-being on the reverse side. And sometimes people may do that thinking that they're going to save money because they don't want to invest. In actual fact, like you said, your dog will end up in the vets a lot more often and end up with serious physical conditions a lot earlier in life. So you'll pay the higher costs at the end by the vet bills. Whereas if you invest in their well-being now with a proper diet of fresh, good quality foods, and it doesn't mean you have to slave over the kitchen all day. There's amazing food companies out there now that cook the food for you and deliver it to your door. And then you have them living by your side for longer. Who doesn't want that?
Absolutely. And like you were mentioning the vets there, and one thing that I've kind of noticed, because I'm kind of looking at everything now, the craziness in the world, is there's a snake in the symbol in the veterinaries in Poland. I think it's everywhere as well. You see it on the back of the ambulance, you see it in the hospitals, and the pharmacy as well has a snake in it. And then when you see all the different things, the logos around the world by the powerful elite, they always have a snake in it. So it's like these things are kind of, they're like kind of telling us they're not good for us. I don't know, have you ever thought of that, or have you spotted that?
I have, and the way I interpret that is that, you know, these kind of bigger conglomerates that are pulling the strings behind absolutely everything, they're very clever. Okay, they're dialed into the power of symbolism. So one thing I learned when I went to India, one of the first things that kind of shocked me was that I kept seeing the swastika sign everywhere. And I was like, why have they got
It's
the
a lucky
swastika?
symbol there, isn't it?
Oh, it's a sacred symbol, but
Yeah.
it's reversed.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hitler took the swastika and reversed it around, right? So they're dialed into these powerful symbols. And, you know, the snakes that you see on the medical symbols around the world, I believe that they're in relation to the Kundalini energy, okay, which is the dormant energy that sits at the base of our spine. And our job as a human being on this earth is to cleanse the channels and the chakras and everything that goes up the body, so that Kundalini energy at some point can start to rise up and travel up. And what it does is there's one main channel that goes straight up the spine, and there's two channels that kind of weave around the spine like that look like that snake sign. And the Kundalini is depicted as the snake because it rises up and comes out at the top, and literally the light arcs over you. So that's where that symbol comes from. And the medical world, I believe, fundamentally used to genuinely have amazing healing abilities. They used to have homeopathy. They used to use herbs. They used to incorporate everything into it. But then when, again, people influenced it around the 1900s, around that time, and things really started to change. So I think that old symbol is left over from that. But even to see that symbol with other organizations that we know maybe are fundamentally not great or positive from the get-go, they still, Roy, know how to tap into this symbolism. That's the way I see it. They know what they're doing. They know the astrology. They know everything,
Yeah.
but they just flip it for a different purpose, and we need to just flip it back.
No, definitely. And I'm just curious, I don't want to mention the word, but I'll say I call it the poison dart that they give to animals. And I think with the chipping as well, where they're conditioning us that we think that's normal. Because like when I grew up, you know, in the early 70s, with the, like you maybe got the stemper and that was it, but nothing else. And they never had problems. My brother's dog died after getting, and there's someone else I know as well. He doesn't believe it's from that, but I think it is. Like his dog is getting epileptic fits sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, because I don't think it's, I mean, even for humans, it's like if you look at the ingredients that's in it, it's all toxins. And I don't think it's good for the animals either.
Yeah, again, I'd say if people are listening all over the world, to this podcast, if you have an animal and you're thinking about giving them a jibby jabby, it's about, first of all, sourcing a holistic vet and understanding what diseases are most prevalent in your area. Okay, what are the genuine risks? And a holistic vet will tell you what, if any, are actually needed. Okay, so I went into this in huge detail with one of my friends who's a holistic vet, right? And the question I asked her, I said to her, if it's your dog, right, knowing all that you know and seeing all the damage that you've seen from animals being over jabbed, which they are all the time, is there anything you would give your animal if it was your puppy? What would you give them? As well as all the homeopathy that you give and everything like that. And she came back and she said that she would give a parvovirus vaccine once in the animal's life at 12 weeks old. Everything else she feels can be managed. And I thought, wow, now isn't that super interesting? Like that, there's a balance there. Okay. So, but paying attention to what she said, I would give it to the dog once for their entire life at 12 weeks old. And then what happens, you see, is we're encouraged to give them the same shots year in, year out, Roy. And there's this thing you can do with animals. If you do want to give them one particular shot, if it's a prevalent disease and a holistic vet has genuinely told you, do this, you go, fair enough. What you can do is you can do something called a titer test. And a titer test is basically a blood test where they can test to see if the shot is still active in the animal system. If it's still active, you don't need to give them a booster. Okay. And there's amazing information is coming out on this now. There was a study that recently came out just a few months back, where there's dogs so far at year 5, and the titer tests are showing that the shots are still active. Now that study will continue to grow as the animals get older. But so it could even get to 10 years, it could even get to 12 years. And there's one holistic vet in the States that did it on her own dog in the 90s. She gave the dog one shot, puppy shots, once, and did titer tests, and they lasted the dog's entire life. Okay, entire life. So it is about, approaching it with awareness. Now, I just also want to say there's people out there who don't want to do any jabs at all. Huge respect. Whatever you want to do, I'll work with you. I try and meet everybody in the middle because it's for the animals. And the people who don't want to give any jabs at all, there's homeopathic no-sodes, which are basically homeopathic versions with no side effects, no toxins, and they give your animal protection. But fundamentally, the one thing that's really going to protect your animal against any invasion of any sickness or virus or anything you're fearful about is feeding them well. If you give them a good diet, they've got a strong life force. If they have a strong life force, their immune system is strong. So therefore, the dog next door might succumb to, lepto, whereas your dog doesn't. It comes back to you are what you eat. Feed them well and they'll stay well.
Us. Like, I mean, yeah. I've seen some people like the best horses, the healthiest horses, and you look at them and you kind of go, why aren't you eating the same food as your horse? Because
oh, it's so true. Yeah.
So, like, there was one thing, because I know you have a blog as well, and there was one thing I didn't know as I was kind of doing the research, and it was like, in the hot weather, people put out the bowls for the dogs and they put ice in it. You might just touch on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? So this comes back to the principles of Chinese medicine. when we get our heat waves here in Ireland, which don't happen too often, all of a sudden the ice comes out. Everybody's giving their dog these ice creams, doggy ice creams. They're putting ice cubes. I was in a pub recently and I just saw a doggy bowl just with loads of ice cubes in it. And I just thought, oh my God, and there wasn't even any water in it. And people are feeding their dogs ice cubes, thinking they're going to cool them down. But in actual fact, what happens is when animals or us ingest something as cold as ice cream, or even an ice cold beer or a drink with ice in it, that goes into the body, and the body straight away responds. It creates a very deep internal cold going on within the body. So the body receives the message, oh, I'm very cold now. I need to warm myself up again. So if you're trying to cool down a dog on a really hot day and you give them ice, you're actually in effect causing the body to warm up again. Okay, it's very, very confusing for the body. A lot of practitioners of Chinese medicine say one of the worst creations that we have here, and the Chinese would say this, one of the worst creations we have here in the West is ice cream. Because the ice cream, the ice not only has that effect on the digestive system, but the cream itself actually causes then the spleen to the spleen really doesn't like dairy. Okay. And the spleen doesn't like cold either. It likes to be warm. So ice cream is a nightmare. So if we want to cool our animals down in a safe way, or cool ourselves down in a safe way, a simple thing to do is get a bowl of water, 2 bowls of water. In the first bowl, you have plain drinking water, leave it as it is. In the second bowl of water for your doggo, put in, or your cat or your horse or anybody, and put in a few pinches of high quality salt, sea salt, Himalayan salt, and let the dog or the cat or the horse choose. They'll either drink the plain water or they'll drink the salted water to cool themselves down. And you've created basically an isotonic drink. I would give it to animals 365 days of the year because it keeps them rehydrated. Sometimes senior animals, for example, can be getting dehydrated because the kidneys aren't functioning properly, and a little bit of salted water for them to self-select when they need it, because they inherently and instinctively know when their body needs a bit of salt. That's a much safer way to cool them down than giving them ice cubes. And it's not people's fault. A lot of, if you have been doing that for your animal friend, a lot of people recommend it. A lot of people recommend give them ice cubes, or give them frozen treats, or sometimes I've heard trainers even recommend people feed their dog their food frozen because their dog keeps wolfing down the food. So the dog constantly every day is being fed frozen food. I'm like, wow, like you're just, that's just, think about it. Like, it's just, it makes me shiver with cold. So it's about, keeping things neutral, and supporting the animals in that way.
And I suppose a bit of common sense as well, because, anytime I had wild cats, they both disappeared after 2 or 3 years. Don't know what happened to them, but if you're putting out water, and they don't tend to drink water anyway, but that you're putting in the shade, because some people they don't, and you see the balls in the sun, and even if they're not adding the salt or they're not conscious, at least have it in the shade so it's not boiling up.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's about providing shade for your animals as well. Especially for large animals, sometimes I see you're driving around and you see them in their fields and there's no shade, and it's just really important to make sure that your animals have the opportunity to have shade themselves.
So I have seen some of the videos where you have the cats and you have the herbs. I believe you have them in a bag, but there's all different herbs, and just seeing how the cats react. So you might just tell people a bit about that.
Yeah, I love that. So that's the herb mats for cats, is what I call them. So basically what that is it's a selection of different herbs. So in one bag you may have comfrey herb, which is good for the musculoskeletal system. And then in the other bag it might have angelica root. Angelica root is an incredible herb for achy bones. It's also for emotional traumas. If an animal has had an early life trauma, angelica root can really soothe that. It supports the liver. I mean, angelica root's a bit of a unicorn herb in my toolbox. So they might have some of that. They might have valerian root to calm them down, a little bag of that. The cleavers. I mean, there's maybe 6-7 different herbs come in this pack. Okay, I vary which herbs go into a pack depending on what the individual cat has selected. And then what happens is I post them to their people, and they lay out the individual bags of herbs on the ground, and the cat instinctively will come up to the herb that they need at that time, and they'll pick the bag up and they'll start rubbing and playing in it. So once they've done that, what you do is they've shown you what herb they want to work with today, and you put out a towel. And then you get a few pinches of that herb, take it out of the bag and put a few pinches on the towel. And the cat then will start to roll around in the herb. They may start to eat the herb, or they might start to just quietly sit beside it and smell it and fall asleep beside it. Or they may even go into a bit of a healing trance with it, which is a bit like a cat meditation. They just kind of curl down. They're not asleep. Their eyes are still kind of blinking. And they're going deep into a healing process with these herbs. So they can help them mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And you can leave those herb mats out for as long as they want to play with them, and add in a new herb each day to see which one they want to interact with. And they're very, very good because they not only heal the cat, they create sensory stimulation, sensory enrichment, which is really good for cats, say, for example, can't get outside for some reason. Although I always seriously advocate you let your cats outside. But some people, they don't have that facility, they don't have the ability. So this is a way of bringing nature into them. Also, like I'm going to be working on a cat there who had major surgery last week. So that cat, I will include herbs in that, like yarrow and the symphytum, which are really good healers. Okay, and it'll help the cat just kind of stabilize itself after major surgery and the trauma of that, and the trauma of what the surgery means on that cat's body, because the cat recently had a leg amputation. Okay, so that's huge. So this is a way where once the animals are finished in veterinary care, I catch them out the other side. I catch their guardians out the other side, and I can be that extra support and help them kind of to the healing process. And the herb mats with the cats is a phenomenal way of doing it. It's great fun to watch as well.
No, it was fascinating. The videos, I was looking at them. So we'll make sure that we'll put the video link with so people can see that. And just like curious with the one that I mentioned of the friend of mine that's got it's an Argentinian dojo, I think they're called. So he's gotten the epileptic fits, a lot of them, and then they're getting medication, and it's like it's not really helping. Is there any is that anything that you've come across that there's ways of trying to doing that naturally to help?
Oh yeah. I've worked a lot with animals with seizures. So from a Chinese medical perspective, when an animal has seizures, there's usually two organs that can be causing it: the liver or the heart. And if an animal is having a reaction, seizures, like you said, after that dog, most likely it's since the shots and things like that. It can be a huge impact that can happen. And even from the wormers, the modern wormers that vets are using, they're called a class of drugs called isoxalines. And a lot of animals are getting seizures from them as well. And that can be something that could usually be by the liver. So it's about, like, I have a dog at the moment I'm helping with seizures, and that dog always has the seizures between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning time. And that's the hours of the liver. That's when the liver is most active. Okay, so straight away that, by just asking that simple question, what time does the animal have the seizures at? You possibly can highlight it's the liver. I mean, there's many other things I would be looking at as well to identify it. And then it's about, working with the animal and saying, well, which organ, because other organs impact the liver as well. And it's saying, well, which organ do you want me to start with? Okay, how can we support the liver? Do we support the kidneys to support the liver, or do we go straight in and support the liver directly? So that's where the animal has this innate wisdom to tell me, oh, start with the kidneys first, and then we support the kidneys to in turn support the liver. That will just give you one example. And then the other type of seizures then is connected to the heart. So in Chinese medicine, the spirit of the heart is called the Shen. Each organ has a spirit. And what the principles say is that when an animal has a seizure, it can be because the Shen is leaving the body, the spirit of the heart is leaving the body. So the emotional causes behind seizures is basically wanting to exit, not being able to cope in life, wanting to escape. Okay, they literally leave the room. Okay, so the Shen, the heart energy, is not being grounded. Consequently, actually, the liver plays a big role in grounding the Shen in. But an animal, it can be about treating the seizures by supporting the heart and supporting the emotions and understanding why the animal fundamentally wants to leave. Or maybe it's their person that's really having a very difficult time and they want to just check out. And the animal is checking out for them and having the seizures to mirror back to them saying, look, this is not working for you. You need to, instead of checking out, you need to deal with why you want to check out. So it can be a process. It can be a real process, but it can be a very rewarding one, because I get a lot of animals with seizures where, they've just escalated. The drugs are no longer working, and they've just tried everything, and then they come to me, and then we really look at why they're happening. And I like to work in collaboration with vets on these types of cases, because you have to be very, very careful. Very, very careful with seizures, and huge respect to all the hard work the vets are doing. So it's about teamwork.
Brilliant. And I'm just curious then, with all the animals that you're dealing with, have you had any bad cases where because I mean some dogs and some cats, whatever, they're just comfortable with the kind of the family, and when somebody comes in to help, I know you can do a lot of this stuff online, but have you had experiences that and how you can potentially avoid them in the future?
Do you mean like experiences
like they try to bite you, or they're just attacking? Because sometimes you see that with an animal, they're defensive of their owner.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, like I'd say when I go and visit an animal, they tend to respond to me in a different way to what they normally would do. So you could have an animal that's usually quite aggressive and they'd be quite calm with me. Or you have an animal that's usually quite calm and then suddenly they'd be aggressive with me. Okay, so it can go either way. And the reason being is that they show me their true nature, or they show me what's really going on for them. So yeah, I was working with a dog where I went into the house and I had the botanicals in my box, and just the vibration of the oils can trigger them. Okay, because they know, because they're already releasing, and they can have a trauma release. So there's certain oils that I use that I know to be very careful with. And with this particular case, I walked into the house and it was a big breed of a dog, like a serious breed. And the dog just starts growling at me, and the person's like, oh my God, she never normally does that. And I was just like, can we put her on a lead? And the guardian was like shocked. Why would you want to put her on a lead? I'm like, well, if that dog, you won't be able to get that dog off me. That dog is a serious dog. So eventually I kept working with the dog, and twice she kind of really turned on me, but the guardian had her. And then eventually the oils won. Like by the end of it, the dog was panned out on the floor, completely chilled out and relaxed. So the oils will win. It's about me keeping myself safe until they do. If there's a particularly tricky horse, I'll always, and I know that they need a particularly tricky oil, like a trauma release one. I'll always work from the outside of the stable. Like, there's only one of me, and I don't want to, I've got many more animals to heal. So, I never have any fault in the animal at all if they respond to me in a way that's deemed aggressive. I just think they're just asking for help, and I'm the one to give it to them.
Brilliant. And I'm just going to ask one final question, but what I know is I'd love to get you back again, maybe, in December or something. And what we can do is the listeners then can kind of write to me and give me some questions for you, because I think this is fascinating. But one of the things that I've seen you talk about as well is kind of helping in end of life with the animals, because I don't think not everyone kind of thinks of that, but it's nice to kind of know a bit more about that as well.
Oh yeah, that's the quieter part of my work that not many people know I do. I've been working with the animals now, end of life, for 10 years. And what I do is I give them a voice. This is where the animal communication plays a big role, because if an animal is senior and their body is letting go and their person knows it's getting close, or an animal has been given a diagnosis by a vet, it's about, I give the animal a voice and say, well, how do you want things to pan out? Do you want to try go for a natural passing? Or is your suffering too much? Do you actually want help to leave? Do you want a euthanasia? And then, as hard as that conversation is, I cry every single time. It takes the responsibility, for all the responsibility, off their person's shoulders. It becomes a conversation. And then what we have is there's certain botanicals that we use at end of life that support the animal, the soul, to leave. Okay. They don't force it like chemical euthanasia, but they seriously help the animal to go. So they can actually completely avoid needing euthanasia if that's possible, but sometimes it's not. And the other thing as well, the end of life botanicals, what they can do is they can actually give an animal that is really, really waning, they can suddenly bounce back, right, and have a new burst of life and start playing with toys they haven't played with in months and doing things they haven't been doing in months, because it gives them full soul autonomy. So the soul just says, I'm not ready to go yet. I've got more time here. And eventually the time will come again where they start to wane. And then we use the end of life botanicals for another time, and this time they might continue to wane and then eventually go, or they might go for euthanasia, but their soul is still really, really ready by the time they go for it. So the euthanasia is just a last little nudge beyond the veil. So it makes the whole thing, it makes an impossible time a teensy little bit more possible for everybody involved. And it's very, very special work. Very special.
Beautiful. Listen, Lisa, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Definitely love to get you back. And brilliant. And you might let people know where they can find you.
Oh yeah. My website is animalhealing.ie, so they can find and my handles on Facebook and Instagram is Animal Healing Lisa Tully. You'll find me there as well. And yeah, I'd love to hear what questions all of you have out there, and I'll be sure to answer them on the next time we chat, Roy.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so I'll make sure I'll put all the links both onto the audio and the video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that's all for the meditation podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. Until next week, take care.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. You'll find everything about me on bio.link/podcaster with all my podcasts, and you'll find it, you see in the QR code in the graphic that's shown. I'd like again to thank my sponsors. So if you or someone you know struggling with anxiety and want to know how to be 100% anxiety free in 6 weeks without therapy or drugs, Daniel Packard's Anxiety Solution Program company offers a 6-week system that permanently solves anxiety at an astounding 90% success rate. People who join the program only pay at the end once they have clear, measurable results. If you're interested in learning more, go to permanentanxietysolutions.com, where you can book a free consultation with Daniel. Do you fight blood pressure and or want to get off the meds? Doctors are amazed at what Zona Plus can do. You can get a $50 discount with my code ROY, zona.com/discount/ROY. And you'll see it in the QR code as well as Daniel's QR code. Quality manufacturer of metal products for telecommunication and workshop equipment and other metal materials. You see the brochure there in the QR code, and let me know if you would like a quotation, shipped internationally at a very competitive price. I'd like to thank all my sponsors and also all my listeners. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, really helps. And I also have a video on how to give a 5-star rating because a lot of people have wrote to me asking me that they don't know how to do that. Until next week, take care.